SP Tulsian is also with us. Mr. Tulsian, deal called off. Sir, how would the 4 shares react, you think?
Excellent news for Shriram shareholders, for both Shriram City and Shriram Transport. Because if you really see the situation going, or maybe the background in which this whole merger or maybe the integration move having initiated, it was given an impression to the market that IDFC seemed desperate to have the growth because they have not been seeing that growth coming in, but that thing is not there, or Shriram twins were not missing on that front. Because if you really take a call first on Shriram Transport, because Q2 numbers are not out in front of us, but if I just take the Q1 numbers vis-a-vis FY17, the Shriram Transport is heading for reporting an EPS of closer to about 80 rupees against 55 what they have posted for FY17. Similar is the case with Shriram City Union, having posted an EPS of 30 rupees purely from the normal operations against 90 rupees for whole of FY17. That means both the companies were capable to give a gain of, or maybe a growth of about 25 to 30%. Even if I don't extrapolate Q1 and say that 30% growth is possible on the bottom line, at least 25% growth is possible. And in spite of that, we have seen the shares languishing because of this merger having proposed with the IDFC group. Both the shares were seen ruling at a P multiple of maybe as low as 12-13, or Shriram City Union as low as 13-14. Because for the last 1 week there has been talk that probably this will not go through, and we have seen the stock prices having gone up. And in fact, the clear example for that is Shriram City Union, which has been hitting the upper 52-week high. In fact, if you take the closing price today, but in case of Shriram City Union, the stock is still away by about 350-400 rupees from upside, from its 52-week high. So I think this will be extremely positive for both the Shriram twins from Shriram City Union and Shriram Transport, because now that the fear of the merger and all those things will not be there. They are capable of having their organic growth going forward, which will be well received by the market, because the kind of expansion which we have seen, the kind of P expansion which we have seen in case of NBFCs, other NBFCs, have been seen missing in case of the Shriram twins. And going forward, yes, this will definitely be seen negative for both IDFC, that is IDFC Holding Company, and IDFC Bank, because now they will be having a question mark on their growth, and obviously market will not be very happy because that thing is not seen coming. So extremely positive for Shriram twin, neutral to mild negative for IDFC twins.
All right, Mr. Tulsian, thanks so much for giving us your expert view on this transaction called off. Mr. Deepan Mehta is also on the line with us. Mr. Mehta, what do you think about the prospects of IDFC and especially IDFC Bank going forward after this transaction has fallen through? So obviously their retail footprint cannot be really enhanced because this transaction is called off. But do you think that there is a requirement of change of leadership also there, and that is something that the market will now pressurize the company for?
See, I wouldn't like to comment on the change of leadership, but the expectations with which IDFC Bank was listed, those expectations have not been met, and by and large IDFC Bank has been a bit of a laggard as compared to the other private sector banks, and they have been able to expand their retail footprint or get into a nice secular growth momentum, which a lot of the other private sector banks are in. And initially a lot of euphoria was there that IDFC Bank also would go the way HDFC Bank or even IndusInd Bank or Yes Bank has gone, but that doesn't seem to be so at this point of time. So, and while there is enough choice in the banking sector, I think many better banks from an investment perspective, I think investors will still shun IDFC Bank.
That's a fair point. So, in your case, you would think that this is good for Shriram City Union, Shriram Transport. Will you buy of these 4 shares any at all?
So I think, yes, definitely positive for Shriram City and Shriram Transport, but another angle or another discussion which I think one could take up is the possible merger with Piramal Enterprises. And we all know that the Piramal Group has got a stake in the holding company of these 2 companies. And this kind of, with this particular consolidation being shelved or put off, there's certainly scope for amalgamation or some M&A activity over there. And that also is a pretty big giant in the financial services business, considering the way they have grown in the last few years or so. So that could be also another financial behemoth which one could consider. So that would be a more exciting, kind of a transaction which one could look into, and certainly prospects for both the Shriram Group companies definitely better after the shelving of this merger or the cancellation of this merger.
If I can add, the Piramal and Shriram merger, which was in the waiting, which was the first plan A for Piramal Group, that did not fructify. Therefore, the solution of IDFC was also thought of. Okay. So I don't know whether they can go back on the drawing board on that particular large transaction also, but with time, the plans also change.
Yeah, no, there is no regulatory problem because Reserve Bank rules don't prevent any.
There was an integration problem over there.
Yeah, there is a different kind of problem, but at least there is no regulatory issue. So what Deepan says perhaps could still happen. Mr. Tulsian and Deepan Mehta, thank you very much for joining us and giving us your take on this merger being called off. I think it's a chance missed for IDFC. If the government put a spanner in the works, it has only itself to blame. And I think it's IDFC that has lost an opportunity perhaps to expand its wings. It's not been easy. Has Yes been able to build such a huge retail franchise? Kotak could win it simply because it could get ING Vaishya and, it had some bit of a retail footprint. Otherwise, for a new bank to get a retail footprint for IDFC, although it comes 10 years after Yes and Kotak, it wasn't easy, and this was perhaps something which would have been a big relief for IDFC Bank to get that retail footprint. If the government put its foot into the merger, then perhaps that's not a very well thought out opposition.
If I can make a very quick point, that despite so much scrutiny, the RBI gave two licenses, Bandhan and IDFC Bank. And if IDFC Bank fails to deliver after 2 years, then definitely it's a lot of showing on the RBI as well as a regulator. So I don't know if they will have to come up with a solution in some time while IDFC Bank has not managed to do this transaction and probably look at newer horizons.
I don't think it'll be an RBI will ever look. It will be a government problem to ensure the viability or the expansion of IDFC Bank. In any case, that's a problem for another day and for another person altogether, another entity. For the moment, this expected merger that was announced with much fanfare in August is not going to happen, and that perhaps was writing on the wall, which CNBC-TV18 broke several weeks ago, telling you that there are too many problems here and it looks like both sides don't want to stay put.